one of my favorite videos is a what is it? Is it a cat and a dolphin? And they're really being friendly to each other. I really like that video. It's a really nice one. And there was another one where there's an eagle that comes and comes to the front porch, and it seems to be communicating with the cat. Yeah, and I researched that one. It turned out that the eagle was its mother was killed when it was an eaglet, I guess you would say, a baby eagle. Yeah, and so it was taken into what do you call it? What do you call that? Bird sanctuary or something like that? A refuge, where injured birds go, or where they find baby birds. These are like really huge eagles and stuff like that, or anything really, and they're nurtured there, and then they're released back into the wild. That kind of place. It turned out that eagle was basically raised in captivity. Yeah, it was raised in a sanctuary, and once it was released to the wild, it kept coming back. It like because that's its home. Yeah, so it would keep coming back, and evidently it knew where the owner lived, so it would fly to the owner's house and sit outside the porch, and just kind of visit. And this cat probably was a kitten when this eagle was a eaglet. Yeah, so these two knew each other for a long time. It's really interesting. Still, even that's amazing. Yeah, when you have animals of different species communicating with each other, getting to know each other, and it's really amazing. And of course, there's another one. This other one I think was in Australia, or I can't remember where it was. Or no. I think it was England. Oh, I can't remember. New Zealand, some country where they have a funny accent. Just say it like that. And what is it? They had the lady had a terrier, and how did this one go? Excuse me. It's kind of like a Red Cross dog. Yeah, I mean, it goes around and it helps people, kind of thing. And here it saw this what was it, a baby kitten. It found a baby kitten, so it brought it back to the house, and nobody claimed it. So this kitten was starting to nurse from this terrier, and it's so amazing because a veterinarian was saying that that it is possible, yeah, that through this action, that it could set something off in the dog's mind to actually produce milk. Yeah, even though it was an older dog, it could still produce milk. This action that the kitten was doing could eventually produce milk, and it did. Yeah, so the little kitten was being raised by this terrier. That's pretty cool. Yeah. And one of the funniest ones, though, that I ever heard of, and it's a true story. These are all true, by the way. One of the funniest ones that I ever they showed it on TV here in Germany. It was a baby wild boar got lost, and they're all over the forest here, yeah, and they only come out at night, so that's why the parks, they close at 8 o'clock, because you don't want to be chased around by any wild boars, yeah. So anyway, this baby wild boar got lost, and so it was it was playing, and it got lost on the and didn't know what to do, so it ran out into this field, just making the sound that whatever wild boars make. And here it just stood out there, and it was like crying. Well, this cow went up to it, and the baby boar took to the cow. And next thing you know, the cow just kind of adopted it. And so this baby wild boar was hanging around the calves, yeah. And when the cows were out there in the pasture running free, this boar was among them, and when these cows were all mooing, this boar was actually trying to moo. It was trying to make the same sound that its adoptive mother was making. It was so funny. But it really it's interesting, yeah, that how the instincts take over like this, and I think these are all really really cool examples of what humans need to learn. Yeah, in Lakota culture, there's so many stories that involve animals, and sometimes the stories are funny, and sometimes they're they're not. But the main thing is that the stories where uh, they teach us things. So we get a lot of information, coming from animals, and even our in Lakota, our family system is based on um, our buffalo people. The way the buffalo organize themselves, the Lakota people organize themselves in the same way, and it's a really beautiful concept because this system allows for absolutely no orphans. Yeah, I'll give you an example what it is. I'll use myself. Um, my mother and her sisters are going to be my mothers. All of them, all these ladies are going to be my mothers. And the husbands to all these women are going to be my fathers. And the children from all these unions are going to be my brothers and sisters. So they all raise us. Each mother is just as important as the one that I was born from. And should something happen to my mother, these other mothers, they're going to fill in that hole. Yeah, they're going to. I have to mourn. We all will mourn together. Yeah, that's the thing. The whole group mourns together. So you're not alone. Even people are going to be crying with you, and there's going to be people supporting you. Yeah, they're going to help you through this. Everybody's going to help each other get through the loss, and and come to peace with it. Yeah. So that's how that is now. My mother's brothers, they have to be my uncles. They can't be fathers, otherwise that would be incest. Yeah. So my mother's brothers are going to be my uncles, and their wives will be my aunties, and their children are my cousins. Yeah. Excuse me. So that's how that goes. Now on my father's side, remember he's married to my mom, so that means he's my dad. Kind of obvious. So when you extend upon that, his brothers are my other fathers. So I have two sets of fathers. Yeah, ones that are married to my mother's and her sisters, and my father's brothers. They're not necessarily the same people. I have two sets of fathers. Okay. Excuse me. Now all the women that are married to these men are my other mothers. Yeah, two sets of mothers here. Pardon me, I had to um, cough there. Anyway, so yeah, so I have two sets of parents, two sets of mothers, two sets of fathers, and all the children from these marriages are my brothers and sisters. Now, my father, his sisters are going to be my aunties, and their husbands are going to be my uncles. And all the children from those unions are going to be my cousins. So I have two sets of cousins on each side of the family, two sets of aunties, two sets of uncles. Yeah. So in Lakota, you heard me say before, there's always going to be exception to the rules. Always. We are not a dogmatic people. We are not fatalistic. Sometimes an auntie might be more like a mother, and sometimes a mother might be more like an auntie because she might have a lot of responsibilities to take care of in other parts of her life. so she cannot fulfill her motherly activities. So another auntie might fulfill that role. Same thing with uncles. Sometimes there's the uncle who will, fulfill the role of a father, like that. So, um, bottom line is children are always looked after. They're always loved. They're always being disciplined. They're always being taught, and they're being guided to going through difficulties. All these adults are teaching them how to go through difficulties, to recognize it and make the best of it. So by the time these young men and women are 15 and 16 years old, they are incredibly emotionally developed. Yeah, that's how that works. That's a Tioshbe. This system we got from the buffalo, how they organized, um, you know, how they organized amongst themselves. This is a really cool story. A cool example. Yeah. So there's a lot of things that we get from the animal world. In the Lakota, whoops, there's a helicopter flying through. Let me close my window here. Yeah, we get a lot of things from animals. And in Lakota, excuse me, in the Lakota world, humans are not above animals. We are the caretakers. We have to make sure that everything functions, this is our human responsibility. And this was because of us, this has to do with the story. And it's actually a beautiful story, yeah. And deciding if I should tell the story or not. I'm looking at the time here, and there's probably some of you that want to hear it. So maybe I should tell the story. It's a story concerning the animals, and it shows our place, yeah, our place among the animals. The bottom line is, in Lakota way, we are not above the animals. Yeah, we are not above them. We do not. We cannot do with them as we wish. This includes plants. Yeah, it's plants and animals. We have a responsibility because of that. Yeah, well, I'll tell the story, okay? This is going to be from my spoken word CD called Wamakashka. Wamakashka is all creation in its natural state, okay? So that's trees, plants, the ground, Makha, Iya, the stone, the mountain, everything in its natural state is Wamakashka. The Christians incorrectly call Wamakashka animals, but it's not. Because in the Christian way, in their Bible, it says on the first page that God gave man dominion over the earth, over the fields, over the water, over the fowls, the beasts, and even women and children, and that is oppression. Yeah, in Lakota, it's not that way at all. In Lakota, we are a part of nature. We are all on the same level. However, we have responsibilities. Okay? So I'm telling you the story that teaches the human responsibility to all Wamakashka, the race. A long time ago, on Mother Earth, the land was one big, huge, and gigantic continent. And everybody that lived on this continent got along with each other. And everything that lived in the water got along with each other. So there was harmony all over the world. The humans got along with the plants and animals. Nature was in balance. So there was a lot of peace and contentment and happiness all over the place. Then after a short time, the humans began to get a little bit too prideful. They started to think a little bit selfishly, and they started to create things that would make their life easier. That's what they thought to themselves. And soon they created more things, and they were inventing more and more things, and their technology began to develop. Our stories say that the technology was so advanced that the people could travel underground, under the water, through the air, at really fast speeds and at great distances. And the technology they had was far greater than what we have today. And I'm making this recording on September 8th, the year is 2002. And the technology our ancestors had was even greater than what we have today. Now, a lot of this technology that they developed was achieved by violating the balance of nature. They were polluting the waters, they were polluting the air, and this was affecting the plants and the animals. And so that peace among all creation began to disappear. Then groups of people started to think they were smarter than each other. They separated into their own groups, and each group thought it was smarter and more advanced than the others. And they would try to prove it by developing, more and more technology. Well, there was a group of humans that was spiritual, and they were going around to the people trying to warn them that if they kept doing what they're doing, that the earth will cleanse herself and everything on the earth will be destroyed and life will start over again. But the prideful people, they didn't want to listen. But the spiritual people kept warning the prideful people of what's going to happen. But the prideful people would not listen. Then one day, the Mother Earth began calling to her children to come to her, to come into her. And so the spiritual people, who are our ancestors, went under the earth, and they stayed under there for a long time. And while they were under the earth began to cleanse herself. There were earthquakes and tornadoes and hurricanes and fires and floods. Every weather disaster you can think of, that's what was going on top of the earth. And so the prideful people were destroyed, and their technology was destroyed too. They were swallowed up inside the earth, and as their technology was swallowed up, it was destroyed. So you can't find any trace of it today. And after a time, Mother Earth told the people inside of her that they could come out now. So they did. And when they came out onto the earth, they saw that everything was changed. Everything looked different. It was a brand new world. There used to be some mountain ranges that would run from east to west, and now they ran from north to south. And so the people were in amazement and in wonderment, and they gave thanks to the Creator and to the Mother Earth for helping them to survive. And the people came out from the earth at a place that's called today Wind Cave in the Black Hills of South Dakota. Then the animals began to notice something. They began to notice that some of their relatives were missing, and they knew their relatives were not bad people, and they couldn't have been destroyed. Well, it was the birds, the winged nations, the ones who could fly at great distances, told all the other animals that the great, big, giant continent no longer existed, and that it must have broken up into smaller pieces, because as they were flying over the earth, they could see like other big continents all over the earth. And as they flew close to these continents, they could see that there were animals that were living there. and some of them were their relatives. And so this is what the birds told the other animals. And so this is why, for example, in Africa, there are these birds called ostriches. And in Australia, there's a bird that is almost identical to that. They're relatives, and they were separated. And now they're living on different continents. And soon a lot of the animal nations began to notice that their tioshpayas were broken up. They were separated all over the earth. And so this made the animals, sad and angry. I mean, they were happy that they survived, but they were sad because they couldn't see them anymore, some of them. And they were angry because it was not their fault that this happened. It was the humans' fault. And so the four-leggeds had a meeting with the animals that move and grow. And in this meeting, they decided that they were going to destroy all the humans from off the face of the earth, because it was the humans who upset the balance of nature. It was the humans who violated nature. And so all this separation was caused by the humans, and they wanted to destroy the humans so it would not happen again. Now at this meeting, there was a little magpie that was listening. The other animals didn't know he was there. And he listened to the whole meeting, and then he flew back to the other winged nations, the other birds. And he told the birds about that meeting and what was said. And the birds began to agree too. They wanted to destroy the humans as well. And they were really getting angry, and they were saying things like, yeah, that's right, my relatives are over in another continent, and I can't fly that far, so I'll never see them again. And they were really upset. And they were getting drunk on rage and anger. Then a voice spoke, a soft voice. And it wasn't loud, it was not angry, it was not necessarily a happy voice, but it was a voice that when you heard it, you just quiet it down. And this voice came from an old owl. And the owl said that the humans are part of the two-legged Wamakashka. And so if they destroy the humans, they have to destroy all of the two-legged Wamakashka. But the thing was that the bears were also members of the two-legged Wamakashka. And he said that the bears represent wisdom on this earth. So if the animals destroy all the two-leggeds, there will be no wisdom on this earth. And there cannot be happiness without wisdom. And so the birds were going to each other, oh yeah, isn't it? Saying things like that. And so they agreed, and they realized that, yeah, the two-leggeds cannot be destroyed. Because if the two-leggeds are destroyed, then what's the purpose of life? All the Wamakashka on the earth is important. All creation on the earth is important. And everybody has a right to live on this earth. And so if one of the Wamakashka is no longer on the earth, it's going to affect the rest of the Wamakashka as well. And so the winged nations, the birds, decided to meet with the four-leggeds and things that move and grow. And they did. And they held a really big meeting, and there was a big debate because the four-leggeds were so drunk on wanting to destroy the two-leggeds. And so the owl presented their case before all the animals, but it did not change the mind of the four-leggeds. And so the owl said, well, maybe we should have a contest. if the four-leggeds win the contest, then the birds will stand by and let the four-leggeds destroy the two-leggeds off the face of the earth. And if the wingeds, the birds, if the birds win, then the two-leggeds must be allowed to continue to live on this earth. And so all the animals agreed to this contest. And it was decided that the contest would be a race around the Black Hills. And the race would start on the east side of the Black Hills, and it would go around the Black Hills clockwise 4 times. And so all the animals agreed to it. Then on the day that the contest was to start, all these really powerful animals were lining up at the starting line. There were buffaloes and mountain lions and deer and antelope and really fast animals. And also the really powerful birds were lined up too, the eagles and the hawks, and amongst all these really fierce runners, this little magpie came that was listening in on that first meeting. And he was just a little magpie, and he didn't look very powerful. So all the other animals were making fun of him. Even the strong birds were teasing him. And they were saying things like, how could this little magpie who is always yapping away ever hope to expect to win such a mighty race as this one? He is so lazy. He does not even fly south for the winter. But that little magpie, he didn't care. It didn't bother him. He just wanted to be in the race. And so he stood on the race, and he's just a really small bird, and he was all at attention, and he was ready to go with his eyes looking ahead. And then the owl started the race, and all the animals started running. And so they ran and ran and ran. And as they were coming close to the starting area again, they would really run hard. And dirt would, kind of start piling up on the east side of the Black Hills. And the second time they were running around, they were running even harder. And some of them were starting to get tired, but every animal was a determined runner. They were all determined to win. The four-leggeds wanted so badly to destroy all the two-leggeds. They ran so hard they wanted to make sure they won. And the birds were thinking to themselves that we have to have wisdom on this earth. We have to have wisdom. We cannot let wisdom be destroyed from this earth. And so that would be their thoughts, and they wanted to win this race. And they came around close to the starting area the second time, and they would really run harder, so more dirt started piling up into a hill on the east side of the Black Hills that was not connected to the Black Hills. And they would start on their third time around. They were running harder and harder and harder. And pretty soon the animals' hooves and their paws and their feet were starting to break open because they were running so hard. And so there was blood on this racetrack. And they kept running and running, and then they were coming to the starting area again the third time, and they ran even harder. And again a whole bunch of dirt started piling up even higher on this hill that they were making. And they started around their fourth time. Soon the animals began to die of exhaustion, and they just couldn't make it. They were running themselves to death. And still there was blood on this path. And they kept running, and some of them were dying, and they just kept going and going and going. And now they were coming to the north, and there were only 2 animals left. There was a buffalo and there was that little magpie. Those were the only two runners left. Just imagine that. This little magpie and this huge buffalo, the final runners. All the other racers had died. And these two were really tired, but they were still trying to win this race. And so the magpie didn't think he was going to make it. And then he got an idea. He decided to fly up on the buffalo's hump where the buffalo couldn't see him. And so he did. He flew up on top of the buffalo's hump and he just sat there and rested for a while. And the buffalo turned around and he thought that the magpie must have died. And so he slowed down because he thought he was the only runner and he was going to win. As they got close to the finish line, the magpie flew off the buffalo's hump and flew over the finish line first, and he won the race. And so this was how wisdom was saved, by a little magpie. But the thing that I want to point out is how powerful the Wamakashka are. We are all Wamakashka. All of creation is Wamakashka. After this race was over, another meeting was held, and all the animals that were still alive gathered. These were the animals that were not in the race, and they all gathered, and the four-leggeds said they would live up to the agreement. They said they would not destroy the two-leggeds. But the four-leggeds and things that move and grow, they wanted to add one more thing to this agreement. They said that the humans must be responsible now for all of creation. And the humans were to see that the animal nations do not overpopulate, that they do not underpopulate, that they should take care of the ground so that things will always grow, and also that the humans should take care of the water so that there will always be life. And so all the animals agreed to that one additional item. So just think, because of this race, us humans are still here. Now the bears are members of the two-leggeds along with us humans, and there's a really sacred reason for that. And that should not be spoken on a recording or spoken about in public. That's a ceremonial thing. And so I'm not going to mention that. So today, we humans have a responsibility to live in balance with all creation, with all Wamakashka. We are not over the plants and animals. We are not over the earth. Instead, we have a responsibility to them. We are the caretakers of this earth. We don't own the earth. And when we need food, we are only supposed to take what we need. We don't kill a whole bunch of animals and then stock them up in a freezer or things like that. We're only supposed to take what we need. And when we hunt, we're supposed to do it in a respectful way so that all of creation will be honored. This is why our ancestors had sacred songs they sang before they went hunting, and that they had ceremonies and songs sung after the hunt was over, so that the people may live, so that everything may live, so that the balance of nature will always be in balance. And we're not supposed to be doing things like, killing an animal and, just taking some of the meat and cutting off the head and putting the head on the wall. Those animals are our relatives. That's like, killing your grandpa and then putting his head on the wall. I don't think we would do that. Well, at least I would hope not. So we shouldn't be doing that to animals either. And today you see sports teams with all these mascots as animals, and some of them look really stupid and funny, and that's also showing disrespect to the animals too.
So today, we're messing up. Today, we are neglecting that responsibility. And there's evidence of it all over. New viruses are coming. Some of them have already been here. As time goes on, if we continue to neglect our responsibility to all of creation, it's going to get worse. Even now, there's mosquitoes bringing this West Nile virus, and right now it's just taking a few people, but you never know, it could get worse. Today, humans create all these insecticides to kill insects, and as a result, the insects get stronger, so the insecticides can't kill them. And at the same time, when they bite us, it could make us really sick and even bring us death. In some areas, people are feeding cows to other cows, and all of a sudden you have a mad cow disease going around. Today the humans are really mixed up and have really neglected this responsibility. And so, that someday these animals are going to remember the promise they made. And the promise was that if we neglect our responsibility to all of creation, then the animals will now come among the two-leggeds and destroy us all off the face of the earth. There are several reminders of our responsibility to all creation. One of them is that racetrack. Today, around the Black Hills, there is a red path that goes all around it. And this is the path the animals ran on. And towards the end of the race, they ran so hard that their hooves and their feet and their paws broke open and blood spilled all over the path. And so the red color of this path is from the blood of these animals that were running. And so when we see that path, we're supposed to remember those things. Another reminder is that hill that was built on the east side of the Black Hills. That area that's near the starting area, every time the animals ran near that area, they would run really hard. And so they were kicking up dirt, and it formed into this big giant hill. And our ancestors named that butte Mathopaha, to honor the representative of wisdom. Matho is bear. Baha is a mountain or a really, really big hill. And so that's why they call it Bear Butte today. These are reminders of our responsibility that we're supposed to be caretakers of this earth. And it also is supposed to remind us that if we neglect our duties as caretakers of the earth, the animals can destroy us. And the earth will be cleansed again, just like in the beginning of the story. And so, at first, our ancestors did take care of nature. For example, every 10 years, the entire northern plains was burned by the humans, because when they did this, this nourished the ground and always allowed plants to grow, and so that animals could eat. And since this allowed animals to live, it also allowed the people to live. Now today you see all these fires. Now the people are going to put out the fires just because some rich people live in the mountains.
There's so many wonderful stories that we have concerning, animals. There's another one that shows how we got our warrior societies, which is really a cool story. But that wasn't going to take too long to tell. I don't have that many minutes left on the air today, so I don't have time to tell that one. But it's a really good story. And yeah. Anyway, so again, the bottom line is that we are not above animals. Yeah, we are not above. Excuse me, I really had to sneeze. We are not above creation, and we are a part of creation. And the more that we realize that, accept it, and live in that way, yeah, the more peace we have on this earth. Yeah, that's just it. So anyway, I was just thinking of, I remember, a lot of tribes have stories like that, yeah, that regarding animals, and lots of times, there's even medicines where people wonder how how did how did the medicine men know concerning which plants to use for what. Now I have to make a explanation here, description, you could say. Medicine person and holy person are not the same thing. And today people confuse them, and they label everything as a medicine person. This is incorrect. Um, in Lakota Star knowledge, it teaches that a holy person is a person who speaks to animals, can speak to beings that only animals can see. A holy person can conduct incredibly sacred ceremonies and can even alter the ceremony according to the situation at hand, because not all not all situations of the same ceremony are not going to be the same, because it depends on the people that are there and what they need. Yeah, so he knows how to make that differentiation. And these are holy people. Okay, now medicine people, they only deal with plants, and they know the songs and the necessary preparations. Necessary preparations for these plants, these herbs, these roots, these leaves, whatever they're using from the plants. They know how to prepare it, and they know what songs that go with it in the preparation, and how to administer it. Yeah? This is something medicine people do. So they're kind of like herbalists in a way, but more than that, because they're incredibly spiritual. And both of these situations, a holy person has absolutely no power whatsoever, and a medicine person doesn't have any power either. Yeah? These people do not have power. So when you hear somebody say, "Yeah, the guy has a lot of power," no, they don't. For holy people, it's the Togashilapi. These are his spirit helpers. They're the ones with the power, and they just use his body to administer the healing. With medicine people, it's the plants that have power. So the medicine men and women are just processing that so that they can use the power from these herbs and plants and roots into medicine to help heal people. Do you see what I mean? Neither one has power. Now, a medicine person, let me say that again. A holy person can become a medicine person as well, but not the other way around. Yeah, when the person is a medicine person, that they can't just say, "Okay, I'm going to be a holy person." No, they can't do that. The reason why is because, see, with medicine people, the people that work with plants, they recognize, they can recognize like a child, if that child is going to have a tendency towards plants. They watch that child, they observe that child, and they slowly teach that child a little bit of things to see if it catches on. And if that child does catch on, then they realize this is going to be a medicine person. So they teach that child from then on. As the older it gets, they teach it more and more about plants and teach them the songs and stuff like that. So this is saying that it's medicine people can choose who the next medicine people. I mean, yeah, it's medicine people who choose and teach others to become medicine people too. But holy people, they can't do that. Yeah, holy people cannot choose somebody and make that person a holy person. That's impossible. The reason why is because it's these spirit beings, these Tungashilapi. They're not really spirits. So that you saying spirits is really the wrong word to say. Yeah, people misunderstood that when in the reservation when they first started speaking English. People misunderstood this what to call these beings. Tungashila is not a spirit. Yeah, the original word is Tungan, and these are helpers. Yeah? They're not spirits. They just, you know, how can I describe them? They are physical, but they vibrate faster than we do. Yeah, so we don't see them, but holy people can. Okay, now Tungan, they're also called Tungashi. Okay, now when in Lakota, whenever something is endeared to you, it's special to you, you have a special love for it, it's just helpful to you, then you add the word la at the end of it. Like Wichinchala, that's a little girl. Hokshila, little boy. You see what I mean? And so they use that with this word too, and Tungashi became Tungashila. They're really helpful creatures. And there's a bunch of them. Yeah, Tungashila doesn't mean God. It's a helpful being. It's an original creation of Eon. Yeah, Eon, the rock. And also, now there's more to it, but I'm not saying everything here. Yeah, because this is sacred information, so I'm just giving you generalized knowledge. The plural in Lakota is a pi. It's the P almost sounds like a B, but not quite. Yeah, B it's called. That's the plural, like a plural S in English. So Tungashila would be singular. Tungashila B is plural, more than one. It goes at the end of the word. Yeah, Tungashilapi. So when I say Tungashilapi, now you know what I'm talking about. It's not God. It's the Christians that try to change that to mean God, but it doesn't. Yeah, Tungashila has three definitions. The first one is it's a helpful being, what I'm just now describing here. The second one is it is a grandfather. The third one is it's the President of the United States. Yeah, this is a contemporary definition. So there's a flag song that starts out with the words Tungashila, Tawa, Baha, and on and on and on. That's the president's flag. It's not talking about the spirits. Yeah? A lot of people misunderstand that, and that doesn't mean the spirit. It's talking about the president of the United States. It's talking about the American flag. Yeah, long time ago, when the American government was first making treaties with the Lakota people, the Lakota leaders, they wanted to know, who's your leader? Why isn't he here? And they said, the political leaders and American military leaders, they said, well, he's in Washington D.C. He has to take care of lots of things there. He really has a lot of responsibility, and because he loves his people and he wants his people to be happy. And so the Lakota people said, oh, like a grandfather. And they said, yeah, like a grandfather. So then since then they start calling the President of the United States Tungashilapi. Tungashila. Yeah? So that's the third definition. It does not mean God. That's the Christians. What you heard me talk about, that Christian brainwashing thing that happened to Indian people earlier in the show. I mean, it didn't happen then. I mean, you heard me talk about it at the early part of the show here. And part of that Christianized process is they took some of our words and they Christianized them. And Tungashila is one of the words that they Christianized. So when you hear Indians say, "Yeah, I pray to Tunkashila every day," or "Tunkashila is watching over me, and he's good, he has the way already made for me, and I just have to find it." See, this is not the Lakota perspective. That's a Christian perspective. When you read that on the internet or you hear somebody talk like that, that's not Lakota way of thinking. That's the Christian way of thinking. Okay? So Tagashila is the original creation from Eon. They are helpers. They're helper beings. They can look inside a human body and see something that only they can see. It has nothing to do with if you're a good person or not. There is something inside of all our bodies, and it has nothing to do with how we are. So in other words, you can't say, okay, I'm going to live a really good life so that can happen to me. It doesn't work like that. You either have it or you don't. And it has nothing to do with being good or bad. It's just like your nose. Yeah? Your nose is not good or bad. Unless it's really funny looking. No, I'm just kidding. No, it's just, it's just something that you have. And some of us have it and some of us don't. And it's something that's inside of us. It's not necessary for us to have, but some of us do have it. Yeah? And these Tungashilapi, they can see that. And when they see somebody who has it, they choose that person to be a holy person. See, only they can see it. A holy person can't see it. That's why holy people can't choose who to make a holy person. Only the Tungashila can do that. The Tungashilapi. Only they can do that. So it's the Tungashilapi that choose who the holy people are going to be. Yeah? So in other words, a holy person cannot choose another person and say, I'm going to pass all the ways down to you. That doesn't work like that. And if somebody tells you something like that, that's a lie. That's false. Okay? So, or just making that's, what do you call it? The explanation here. What's the difference between a medicine man and a holy man? Okay? So now you know. All right. Sometimes people might wonder how did the medicine people find out which medicines work for what? Well, sometimes it's because of observing animals. One time, this was long ancient times ago. Cool way to say that. There was this, what was this again? It was the jackrabbit. And the jackrabbit was out there, bouncing around the prairie. And here, a wolf saw it. So it was going to go kill it, eat it. So this jackrabbit really ran towards some bushes. And the jackrabbit ran through these thorn bushes. I forgot what they're called. But he ran through there, no problem. And was just, sitting in there. Now, these bushes, they have a certain kind of sap in their stems. Yeah. So this rabbit was chewing away at this, at the stem of this bush, this thorn bush, and then it proceeded to wipe itself. In this liquid that was coming out of the stem, it started to wipe itself. Yeah, all through there, and then it ran out of the bush, and it ran towards some poison ivy. Yeah, so that wolf didn't know that. Yeah, so that rabbit really started running fast, and that wolf was trying to keep up with it, and then the rabbit ran into this batch of poison ivy, and the wolf couldn't stop in time. So he slid into this huge batch of poison ivy, and it came out and it's just, oh, it's just screaming around because it was throwing itself on the ground, trying to scratch itself like crazy. And all that time, the rabbit was sitting in the middle of all that poison ivy. Nothing was happening to that rabbit. Nothing. And that wolf just went away. It went away howling because it was itching just horrible, and it couldn't. It just had to suffer until it's gone. Yeah, what can you do? So it's biting himself, biting his legs, biting his butt, just biting everything, because he just itching really, really horrible, especially in his belly and his groin area where there's no hair. Really was just, this guy had it bad, yeah. So the bunny was just sitting in there, just twiddling his nose and watching the wolf, run away in agony, yeah. So after a while, the rabbit came out as if just nothing happened. Yeah, nothing happened. It just went away. So a little boy saw this. He was trying to chase the bunny too, yeah, and he knew how to hide from the wolf, so the wolf didn't smell him. Yeah. So the wolf was too fixated on this rabbit. So the boy saw this. So he told his grandfather about this. So the grandfather said, "Take me over there to that plant, where the rabbit was, wiping himself, with this stuff." So the boy took him there, and they looked at that plant, and that old man was saying, "Huh, how about that? That's what Indians use whenever somebody gets poison ivy. They put this medicine on top of the exposed area so they don't scratch. That's how they got that medicine." Isn't that cool? Just from a little old bunny rabbit, he defeated the a big old wolf. Yeah. So cool. These stories are really cool like that. And there's another one that involves rabbits too. This is a really it's kind of a beautiful one, and this one it's relatively recent, and it talks about you heard me talk about when we first got on a reservation, and so that we're talking, within the past 100 years, yeah. And during that time, you heard me say it that earlier, that when the reservations first started, there was no. It was like a prison camp, and we could not leave. And remember, I said that we were not allowed to hunt, we were not allowed to have any kind of weapons, and all we had to eat was some food that came from the American government, which was made us sick with diabetes and heart disease and hypertension and other things like that. And now today, obesity. Yeah. So, let's see. So we were hurting really bad, and it was against the law to speak our language, and it was against the law to do our ceremonies, and so we were hurting. I said this before, and I'll say it again. We were hurting physically, emotionally, and spiritually. And then we became weak-minded. So we were really in a bad state. Yeah, we were really in a sad situation. And so as the reservations were set up, there were these communities that were formed. And some of these communities were they originally were old camping places. And so a lot of times they're down in valleys because it's strategic. That way enemy tribes from if they come close, they can't see the village. And there's always lookouts, so they can tell when enemies are approaching, so they can warn the village and get the warrior societies will get ready and chase the enemies out. Yeah. So that's how that's why a lot of communities today on reservations, Indian communities, they'll be down low in valleys. Yeah, because that's where used they were all, like I said, it used to be an old campsite from before reservation time. So in this certain community, this wagon came in, and usually when the wagon comes in, everybody in the community gets excited, yeah, because it's like, gee, who's here? Yeah, maybe there's some relatives from another community coming to visit. Yeah, so they got all excited, and they all ran to, this wagon pulled into the community. And usually in those days, every community has a church and a community hall where government meetings are done, or celebrations, or whatever, Christian celebrations. And sometimes the community building was also the church. Yeah. Anyway, in this community, the community building was by itself. It was a different part of the community. And so this wagon pulled up to this community, and there were three couples, yeah, 3 men and 3 women, and the what do you call it? There was a couple sitting at the front, with the team of horses, and the two other couples were sitting in the back, in the carriage, you could say. And the kind of wagon is, the kind of wagon you use it's just nothing fancy. It's not a carriage, a fancy carriage. It's just a wagon, like to haul things, stuff like that. And so what do you call it? They got out, and these 3 couples went inside this building, and they suddenly you heard an Indian kind of singing. And the people were really astonished because, number one, it's against the law to sing Indian. So they all ran over there really fast, to see what was going on. And they heard this drum beat, and it was like a heartbeat. And they were looking, and somebody went into the doorway, and they went and just started to go in there, and stand around the wall, around. They didn't go in the center of the building. They were all standing around, around the room. That's the best way to say it. And these 3 couples were in the center. One couple, the man had a hand drum, and he was singing a song, and this woman was singing with him. And the other 2 couples, they had their arms around each other, and they were doing like a dance, a certain kind of dance where the man's his right arm is around the woman's back, and her. Let's see, how does that go? I'm putting myself in that position. My right arm would go around her, so it'd be her left arm would go around him, and then their hands, the other hands were they had their hands holding hands. Yeah, his left and her right hand, they were holding hands. And they were dancing like a certain kind of 2-step dance where you go forward. Let's see, I keep getting this wrong. Okay, you go forward 3, come back 1, yeah, and your feet follow the feet of the drum beat. You see, you go forward, you go left. From the man's point of view, you're going left 3 steps, and then back 1. And you keep doing that over and over. I think it's 3. 1, 2, 3, and 4. Yeah, like that. The woman, from her perspective, she's going right. Yeah, 3 steps and then back 1. So so they go forward, come back 1 step. Go forward, come back 1 step. They're going around the room. And whenever they got to the end of the round, they call it, that's like the end of the verse, the drum beat is a little bit harder, and the couple spin around in a circle, and then they continue doing that. And the people never saw anything like that before. They were just astonished, and it made them feel good. Yeah, the song was happy, and remember, their hearts are broken. Yeah, their hearts are broken. They're physically ill, and they're weak-minded, and spiritually, they can't do their ceremonies. And here they're hearing the drum, they're hearing a really good song, and the dancing looks fun. They really started to feel good. So they were watching and watching, and then this couple, you know, started to go out of the building like that. The dancers went out and they got on. They danced to the buckboard, and then they got onto the back of the wagon, and then the couple sang to the wagon. Yeah, they were walking and they were kind of taking steps like that too, and they got to the wagon, and then when they finished the song, then they got on the wagon and they went back to where they came from. And so the people were just amazed at what they saw, and it was just like they woke up, yeah. And there was excitement, and then somebody said, "Hey, wait a minute, who are they?" Because their faces were covered, yeah. The women's shawls, they covered their faces, and the men had like scarves, like when it's really dusty out in the prairie, you have to cover your face, otherwise you get dust burn, yeah. So this is the reason why cowboys have these handkerchiefs around their necks. They're not trying to be cool. It's not a cowboy look. It's to cover their face when the wind gets really, really rough. Yeah. So these men had their faces covered with handkerchiefs, and the women had their faces covered with scarves, and all of them were wearing gloves. Yeah. And back in those days, all women wore really long dresses and moccasins. Yeah. And so you couldn't see their skin at all. Everything was covered. So that's why they were kind of scary looking at the same time. Yeah. And the men had old hats on and kind of things. So the women wore bonnets. Yeah. You couldn't see their hair either. That's what it really looked scary. So they got in the wagon, and the wagon took off, and by the time somebody said, "Hey, I wonder who they are," they said, "Let's go ask." Because they were just excited and kind of in shock at the same time. So then they went running after this wagon, and this wagon was almost to the top of the hill, and the people got close. The wagon stopped, and these bodies seemed to just drop to the bottom of the wagon. Yeah, they just seemed to drop, and people just stopped, and they were like, "Oh man, what happened? Are they still there? Did they disappear? Are these, what are they?" And somebody got brave and went close to the wagon, and they saw movement. The clothes were on the bottom of the floor. I mean, they were on the floor of the wagon and the floorboard, and but there was movement under the clothes. So that this guy got a stick and he moved the clothes, yeah, and then there were 6 rabbits underneath, jackrabbits. So after he uncovered them, they jumped out of the wagon and they proceeded to jump out into the prairie, song and dance style from the rabbits, and it made the people feel good. It's like they were healing. Yeah, they felt really good, and couples were kissing each other, and because it really made them happy. It brought back life. Yeah. So that's how we got the rabbit dance. Yeah. So rabbits represent happiness. So sometimes when people are going through a really difficult time, maybe even depression, maybe even emotional illness, they eat rabbit meat because there's something in that meat. There's an energy in that meat that works with your body when you eat it, and it digests in your stomach. There's something that comes out from that process of digestion that goes into your body chemically, and it goes into your mind, and that helps you to feel better. It's medicinal. People don't even realize that rabbit meat is really medicinal. Yeah. So that's what rabbits represent to Lakota people. So that's why they still do this. So at the end of powwows, or sometimes when they have a important meeting, you know, long time ago, at the end of that, they would do a rabbit dance. So everybody will leave feeling good and feeling happy, and leave in a good way. Yeah. So that's how that goes. So pretty cool. Yeah. That came from animals. Yeah. In our time of extreme dire straits, you know, we were hurting physically, mentally, spiritually, and emotionally, and the rabbits came and gave us a boost of energy with this music. Yeah, I'll play you a rabbit dance style song. And remember, back in those days, it was against the law to speak Lakota, so they sang these songs in English. So some of them are in English. Okay, so here's one. This one's from a drum group in Canada. These are Lakota people, and these are our relatives. Yeah, they're part of our nation. This is a song called "I Want to Be with You."
Hey!
Holy! Even to hear that song really makes me feel good. That's a drum group called Elks Whistle. They're out of Canada, and one of my favorite all-time drum groups. I really like the songs that they make. That's a rabbit dance, so it's in English, yeah. But the other songs are in Lakota as well. They really have good music. Elks Whistle. Google them. You'll hear some more music. Yeah, YouTube them. You'll see more of them. They really have good music.